first session is on Introduction to Palliative Care. This session will be taken by Dr. Rama Rajagopal, who is a palliative care physician and chairman of Pallium India. And he is known as a father of palliative care in India. Sir, over to you, sir. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Shiva, and namaskar, everybody. Good to see you all. We'll. Hey, Arun, how much time do I have?
For 30 minutes, sir.
It's okay. 30 minutes, and then you will be having the case presentation, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so today it's for me a shorter session than you will have from next week. I am very glad to see you all. Hey, are you glad to see me? If yes, please give me a smile. Arun, are you smiling behind your mask? Yes, thank you, very good. Not that kind of grin, Arun. I meant as a warm, sincere smile. Okay. Sita Magar refused to smile at me. Anyway, maybe they'll smile from next week. I said smile because we are going to have a very important discussion. We are going to have a discussion that will change the way we practice, not only today, during this course. Maybe you will think of several things differently after the course. Think about life differently. Think about death differently. Think about your own loved ones and their lives differently. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to every one of us. I don't, with your permission, I'll share the screen. And when I said our lives will change, the person who caused that change was this Dame Cicely Saunders. Do you know whether she was a nurse, a social worker, or a doctor? In answer, she was everything. She started her career as a nurse. She sprained her back and thereafter could not lift patients. Therefore, she moved to become a social worker and and she was talking about compassionate care, and no one was listening. And a senior doctor told her, Cicely, go and read medicine. Unless you are a doctor, no doctor will listen to you. So Cicely qualified as a doctor in her 30s. Sadly, she left this world 15 years back, but by that time, she had changed the world to a large extent. I'm going to talk to you as your patient tomorrow. If I'm lucky, one of you will be caring for me. And I want you to remember a few things. You are many things. I saw in the group somebody with a doctorate in psychology. I saw people working in many countries. Oh, by the way, people coming from abroad, Nepal, Ghana, Kuwait. Did I miss any other country? From all of us from India, warm welcome to this. Whichever country you are in, your role will be many of these. You may be a teacher, mentor to a lot of nurses for the future, counselor, manager, researcher. You may have all these roles to play. But when I am in that bed, when I am your patient, it doesn't matter to me how many degrees you have. It doesn't matter to me if you have 73 publications to your credit. It matters to me if you are smiling at me. I asked you to start by smiling. Do you smile at patients? When I am your patient, I want you as a human being. A human being who is willing, certainly a nurse, certainly the teacher, all of that, but also a human being. And at that time, I hope you will see me as a person, not just that patient in bed 23, or that cancer patient, or that dementia man. I hope you will see me as a person. I hope you will show me with with a smile that reaches your eye, warmth in your face, compassion in your face. And I hope you will be willing to hold my hand if I am lonely. And if I cannot control myself and start crying, I hope you will not be afraid. To do this, there's no what's the use in wiping a tear? It will convey to me not only that you see how sad I am, but also that you care for me. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my opening remark. Very often, nurses are the most compassionate of human beings. Much more often than doctors, if you generalize. Doctors are very often more of medical scientists. It is nurses who care for somebody round the clock. And I'm not saying this just to please you. I truly feel that nursing is a more noble profession than that of a doctor or a scientist, more than most other professions. So long as we do not forget to be a human being. Your duty and mine, we are both healthcare professionals. Please remember this also. Those of in India will recognize Indian Council of Medical Research as the government statutory body. One of the, maybe the foremost governmental body in medical profession, and they define the duty of your care and duty of me so as to mitigate suffering. Mitigation would include prevention and treatment. Treating the suffering is your responsibility and mine, and the ICMR adds that there is no exception to this rule. No exception to this rule. And this is how WHO defines health. You all know this. You all learned this in nursing school, nursing college. A state of complete physical, mental, and social well being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. When you go to a hospital with some ailment, not as a nurse, with some ailment, does anybody bother about your mental and social well being? We should be. That's what healthcare is about. When we talk about palliative care in the next few minutes, we will be talking about how we, as healthcare providers, nurses, and doctors, have to look after physical, mental, and social well being. Currently, most of your colleagues will not be doing this. Mostly, people will be dealing with diagnosis and treatment. Remember, that means 61 millions all over the world are in serious health related suffering, and out of them, about 10 million are in India. There is that burden of suffering, ladies and gentlemen. After your course, your job and mine is to scoop out some of the suffering turn it away from the face of the world, and we can easily do it. We'll start with this simple, I'll repeat the definition, simple, no-nonsense definition from that Lancet Commission. Palliative care is prevention of serious health-related suffering, whether that suffering is in the physical domain, pain, everything, social, relationships, poverty, emotional, anxiety, depression, or spiritual, which may or may not be related to faith. It may just be about meaning of life. If I am lying there thinking, oh, what was the meaning of my life? There is no meaning. I might as well be dead. Then that's also spiritual pain. And also remember, each one causes the other. Depression will add on to physical pain and breathlessness. Abandonment or loss of meaning will all worsen each other. So is that clear? Shall we all proceed with a clear understanding that palliative care is prevention and treatment of serious health-related suffering? Okay, before I move on, does anybody have a question? Arun, will you look at the chat box and alert me if there is any question?
Yes, sir.
Any important question or comment? Thank you. Any important question or comment?
No, sir, not at all.
Shall I wait for a few seconds for you to ask any question at this stage?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anybody? Any questions so far? Either you can chat or unmute yourself and talk.
I don't.
Sir, no questions, sir.
Can I put on that video?
Yes, sir, sure.
Please watch a 5 minutes video. This was a TEDx talk done by my colleague by name Smriti Rana. While Arun is getting the audio sorted out, Smriti is talking about the concept of total pain. Just a few minutes back, I showed you 4 circles. How physical, social, emotional, and spiritual pain work. All that together is what Dame Cicely Saunders called total pain. And Smriti, in a few words, in a 5 minutes, is explaining what total pain is.
Sir, it's audible, sir?
No, it is not.
This video has some complaint.
Arun, I'm sorry, I don't think I should waste time. You try to sort it out. In the meantime, I am proceeding with my session because today, because the introductions for half an hour, we have less of time than usual. So I'm going on with the, like that video explains, demonstrates what total pain is. We can come back to that later. I gave you a simple definition of palliative care. I did not give this definition at that time because I wanted you to remember that the definition that palliative care is prevention and treatment of serious health-related suffering. But I should also tell you that this is how WHO defines palliative care. This definition is 18 years old, but this stands. Please look at the words that I have highlighted in red. It's about the quality of life. Palliative care improves quality of life. Your patient at the hospital comes and the doctors prescribe treatment to treat the disease, but we also try to improve quality of life, not only the patient but also the family. Every one of you who has had a serious illness in someone in the family know that with the patient, the whole family suffers. And this is done by preventing and treating suffering, pain and other problems, physical, psychological, social, and spiritual. This is the official definition of palliative care, and sometimes the depth of the suffering can be extreme. Cancer alone causes moderate to severe pain in 15 lakhs of people in our country. And this is in addition to all other diseases. The depth of the suffering can be intense, like this man. But look at the good point. After your course, when you started doing scientific and compassionate palliative care, this is the change that you will cause. This happened in less than 1 hour, 5 rupees worth of medicines. Pain, if treated scientifically and properly, can be relieved in the majority of cases. After 3 weeks, this man sat up and had a cup of tea. This is the kind of change that we are able to cause sometimes. But also, it's not only about life, it's also about the end of life. India is one of the countries where end of life is supposed to be particularly bad. We are not very good at treating suffering. End of life care in India is judged to be among the worst among the 50. And you will find Nepal and Ghana somewhere close to this. So, though we said that it's about quality of life, it's also about quality of death. It's also about easing death. It's not only about dying, it's not only about death, it's about life, but also about death. And unfortunately, this is why Dr. Sankamitra, who says the poor die in misery and neglect in India, the middle class die in misery of ignorance, the rich die in misery on ventilators. This is not the way I would like to go. Friends, when you treat me, remember this. If I am dying, I do not want to be like this, hands and feet tied up. Imagine being tied up, that would be the worst kind of death. I want you to give me a humane, compassionate death. This means many things that we do now will have to stop. Some of you have a very elderly, ailing grandmother or grandfather at home, and you may be going and scolding them for not eating properly. The doctors will also say, give her good, nutritious food. But how can you eat if you are not hungry? Stop force feeding. If in incurable cancer, appetite is poor, give a little food, something that they like as much as they can. Not force feed anybody. When medicines may help for some time to improve appetite, I'm just giving you one example. When I am your patient and you are thinking from my point of view, you will realize I am not eating because I can't take in any more food. Why are you scolding me? Stop. If you can improve my appetite with medicines, do so. Particularly, don't give me things that I hate just because that is nutritious. Remember, I may have limited time left on this world. Let me enjoy what I have. So, based on what I have said, please comment. What is
उसको
palliative
ये
care?
मत देखो कि मतलब उसको केवल दर्द को रिलीव करो उसके, क्योंकि कैंसर आप
दर्द को रिलीव करना उसकी पार्ट है, definitely. Treatment of pain is part of it, but that's only one part of it. What else? Either speak or respond in the chat box.
For me, palliative care is something that not only about the pain, but then the quality of life that they are going to spend with the family also is improved.
Important, yes. If I am your patient, remember, as Raju Seno said, my last few days, I want to be with people who love me, not in an ICU. I want to see my children, I want to see my grandchildren. And lovely moon, absolutely. Improve the quality of life. Yes. Any other comments? Shall I go on? And when should it start? At what stage of illness should it start? Please comment.
As soon as they are diagnosed.
As soon as?
We come to know of the
Sorry.
disease, like diagnose.
As soon as you come to know about my suffering,
Yes.
right?
Suffering.
Which can be at the time of diagnosis, can be before, it can be towards the end. At any stage of illness. So does that mean that you won't treat my cancer or my Parkinson's? You will give me only palliative care? It should go hand in hand with the treatment of the disease. They may be giving me chemotherapy. Along with that, I should also have palliative care. Palliative care is not something to be done only in the last 2 weeks of life. This is the idea. We are unable to do it very often, but in the world that you are going to create tomorrow, in the healthcare world that you are going to create tomorrow, it should go hand in hand with disease-specific treatment, as Raju Seno just now told us. Thank you, Raju Seno. And let me spend a few minutes on how this is going to be made to happen. Subsequently, in the course, in the coming weeks, all of your faculty, Shiba and others, will be telling you the fundamentals of nursing care and other aspects of palliative care, fundamentals of communication, basics of end-of-life care, etc. But right now, I have an important message for you about how palliative care will be delivered. Remember, this is happening in our society. Whether it be in Jharkhand or Kerala, there are a lot of people going out of the states to work far away to make money. Young men, old people, women and children are often left alone in our villages. And the small hospitals are closing down. I see that people came from a lot of hospitals in Uttarakhand. And you all will know, or at least it's certainly happening in Kerala, that the small town hospitals are closing it down and large hospitals are becoming bigger and bigger. And there's a huge disconnect between them. In the small town hospital, they would not have felt so much of strangers. But when people have to go all the way from your state to Tata Memorial Hospital, Mumbai for treatment, they are strangers, they are disconnected. You and I need to realize that the social capital, the essence of goodness, in the community is very important. You, as the nurse, and I, as the doctor, cannot do all healthcare. We can do treatment of disease, but to improve quality of life, if physical, social, and mental well-being is to be improved, we need an army of people from the community. I absolutely love this picture taken from the beach in Trivandrum. When on a palliative care day, patients and their families, people bound to wheelchair, and others were taken to the seaside for one evening by the sea. These people, this man with cancer, or these young women with paraplegia, do you think they could have ever seen the sea if we had not made it happen? In a country like mine, or Nepal, or Ghana, can they get to the seaside for an evening? Who made it happen?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry?
Sir,
PPT is not there, sir.
No?
no, sir.
Oh God. Oh, I'm glad you told me now. Oh God. I've been showing it without sharing it. Oh, so sorry. So I was telling you about this small family being isolated from the hospital, huge disconnect between them, and how the community is bridging that gap. These volunteers in the community, they were 150 college students who went out to various parts of our villages, carried four people together carrying one patient to a vehicle, bringing them to the seaside, where they all could get together, smile, laugh, and have one evening by the sea. And this girl, paraplegic, who doesn't have normal sensation in her feet, she said, the waves touching my feet was my best experience in my whole life. And to make this happen, we and doctors and nurses cannot do it together. We need the community together. Shiva or Arun, do you know how many volunteers we have? You would not know. I also do not know. There are so many coming and going. Volunteers from the community have a big part to play. Let them help. There are good, compassionate people anywhere in the world. They will come forward to help you. And then care will reach people where they are when they need it. The majority of you are used to working in hospitals. Many patients get to the hospital, then they go back. You don't even know how they die. Our team goes out to people's homes and provides care. Shiva, have you gone out on home visits? Have you gone out on home visits?
Yes, sir.
Shiva, what did you think about this statement from your experience of home visits? You have done on home visits for many years.
Yes,
Based on that, do you think the care that we give in homes can be given in hospitals in the same way?
Yes, sir. Some of the procedures we can train, we can teach the caregivers and empower the caregivers to do for the patient. I think some of the procedures we can do.
Many things that we do in the hospital, we can do in the home also. That's what you say.
Yes,
But I
yes,
am
yes.
also asking something else. Can you do in the hospital everything that we are able to do in the home?
No, sir, not all, but most of
See,
the things we can.
Thanks. True. But many of these people will never get to your hospital. Unless we reach them where they are, they will not get help. Think of Uttarakhand, think of Nepal. How many places uh, would have very poor access? It will be very difficult to reach people. So care should reach people where they are when they need it. I think we have a few minutes left, so that if Arun can share the video, you are welcome to. Can you?
Yes, sir.
In palliative care, we have this notion of total pain, pain that takes into account the life circumstances of the patient that contribute to his or her experience of suffering. I came across that concept quite early in my life, and in my career, and I thought I understood it, theoretically at least. And then one day, the home care team that I was a part of was called in to see this fisherman in one of the outlying villages of Trivandrum. We parked our van some 400 meters away, made our way down this narrow, undulating path. We could hear this man's screams well before we got to his house. And on approaching the house, we were assaulted by this stench, which made me gag. And when we entered his home, we were met by this helpless young woman, and behind her on the bed, a man in his 40s, who was the source of the screams. He had a myriad problems and a feeding tube. And on closer examination, we found that he also had a bowel obstruction that was not allowing him to pass what his wife was so diligently feeding him, because she didn't know what else to do to look after him. And as a result, he was regurgitating his own waste. It was awful. Anyway, he was cleaned up, analgesics and other medication were administered, but no matter what we did, his pain would not fall below 6 on the pain scale, which is essentially a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, where we ask people to score their subjective pain. So finally, this benevolent and wise doctor that I have the absolute privilege of calling my mentor, he took this man's hand in his own, and he asked him, "What's your biggest concern right now? What is bothering you?" What an odd question, I thought. I mean, the pain, the humiliation, the despair, and just the misery of everything that he was experiencing. I mean, the answer was glaringly obvious to me. The man didn't say anything for a long time, and I started to get fidgety. The silence was starting to get awkward and strained, to me at least. But the good doctor, he held steadfast. And after about 6 long minutes, and I know this because I was timing it, this man very softly said, "All I wanted was for my children not to be fishermen. And now they're going to be just that." He knew he was dying, and he knew that his wife would not be able to support the children on her own, and this one fact was causing him far more agony than anything else that he was going through. So one of the things we strive to do in our program is to undertake the educational needs of children from disease-ravaged families that can no longer afford to send them to school. But this process takes about a week from when the child has been identified. In this case, however, we sped up the processes. Donors were found, pledges were made, documents were signed, all to see these 2 children, aged 8 and 10, through to college. We returned to the fisherman's house the next morning, and he was asked what his pain was. Still 6, he said. He was then shown the documents, and he was told, "It is done. Your children will not be fishermen." The transformation on that man's face was magical. And once he had digested that information, he was very gently asked one more time, "What is your pain now?" 1. He died 3 days later, pain-free. And that, my friends, is total pain. And that was when I truly learned my first lesson in being still and allowing. In palliative care, we have this
So somehow we made that happen within the allotted time for me. I earlier told you that total pain is physical, social, mental, and spiritual pain. To complete our management, we need to discuss all this. But can you do all this? You, yourself, and the doctor alone will not be able to do it. But if we engage the community, if we accept that we have a duty to do whatever we can, then we may be able to do it. Having said that, let me also tell you, even if you try to relieve only the physical pain, that is still a very important thing to do, because pain can be beyond your imagination. Any little bit of relief that you can give to somebody does matter. For any suffering. Ideally, we should be able to do all four domains, but any little bit helps. And in palliative care, we believe there's no situation in which a hospital tells the patient there is nothing more we can do. That is not true. There's always something we can do, even if it's only holding a hand or wiping a tear. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? No questions, sir. Before we move on to the case presentation, I just highlight few things. We have a good section on introduction to palliative care. Thank you, sir. So we have learned many things. With palliative care, we start from the point of diagnosis or suffering. So along with the curative treatment, we can give palliative care, and it is a total care of the patient and for the family also, and physical, emotional, social, and spiritual care. And one more thing is need good teamwork. If we have a good teamwork here, so we will achieve more. So teamwork is also necessary for palliative care. And our main aim of palliative care is improve the quality of life of the patient and their family, and to relieve pain and other symptoms. So palliative care never stops. Even if the patient dies, also we can continue the palliative care with the family. So we can continue bereavement support. We can, if they required, we need give some rehabilitation support for the family members also. So palliative care never stops. We can continue the palliative care even if the patient dies. So can we move on to the case presentation, sir?
Yes, please.
Aina?
Hi everyone, this is Saina from Pallium India. So I will be presenting a case today. I mean a patient story. So my patient is a 39-year-old male. His diagnosis is traumatic quadriparesis with stage 4 pressure sore on sacral region and left gluteal region. The presenting complaints are constipation for 2 days, wet sore over sacral region and gluteal region, moderate pain over the hip, urinary leakage. The history of illness. He had a history of fall while carrying weight followed by neck pain and weakness of both limbs, and was diagnosed with traumatic quadriparesis in August 2015. Admitted and got treatment from one of the government hospital and discharged after 1 month. After 6 months, he developed a bed sore over the sacral and gluteal region, stage 4. History of pain over the hip and wound site for more than 2 weeks. Pain over the hip region is 5/10, which is intermittent and burning type. Then the wound site, 4/10 continuous throbbing type of pain. Due to this, sometimes they keep the wound open. So he also had disturbed his sleeping pattern and decreased oral intake. So on examination, patient is conscious and oriented. Temperature is 98 Fahrenheit. Pulse is 82 beats per minute. Respiration is 20 breaths per minute. And BP is 120/70 mmHg. Then about the pressure, so there is warmth and tenderness. Exudates were present. Tunneling present. Irregular in shape and foul smelling. Treatment and significant investigations are done. All the routine investigations were done. Then moving to the psychosocial aspects, 39-year-old unmarried man living with his 65-year-old mother in a rented house. He has one sibling and he is married and living separately and not caring and helping them. He was a manual laborer and was the breadwinner of his family. Now his mother is a manual laborer and she is taking care of him. Now the main source of income for them is mother's daily wage and her pension. And some of the friends are helping them. They have taken 1.5 lakhs from private finance bank for the treatment purpose. He is a worshipper of God Jesus. Now unable to go church, this makes him very sad. He communicates through cell phone. Mostly he do that. He says to his mother like, I don't think I can walk, so please don't spend money over my treatment. So the main concerns are pressure sore, pain, and financial problem. Summary, a 39-year-old man with traumatic quadriparesis with bed sore present over sacral and left gluteal region with stage 4 with pain over the hip region. So the discussion points are, do we need to provide palliative care for this patient? If so, what are the problems faced by this patient? What all can be done for this patient and his mother? Thank you.
Thank you, Aina, for the presentation. Anybody need any more clarification regarding this patient story? Otherwise, we can move on to the discussion points. Sir?
Shiva, I'm very happy for you to continue the discussion, and especially when we come to the nursing issues, very clearly you will know about 143 times more than myself. But let us get the comments from the team. Do we need to provide palliative care for these patients? Is the first question. Aina,
Yes, sir.
will you stop the screen share for me?
Yeah, sure, sir.
And now so that we can see the gallery and see everybody. Hello, everybody. So is this a patient who needs palliative care? You can either speak or chat.
Yes.
Hello.
Jesse Paul, you say palliative care can be given. I would say palliative care must be given. Okay, absolutely. See, there is this man in suffering. There is this woman in suffering. And Parvati, I agree. Palliative care and also psychological support. Psychological support is part of palliative care. Pain-free, financial, emotional support. Shouldn't he get the treatment for his pressure sore on with paraplegia? It has become stage 4. That must get healed. He should be able to psychological support is what you say. So, Ayana, now that we are all, nobody said no to this,
Yes.
making it very clear that palliative care is not only for cancer, not only for end-of-life care, there is serious health-related suffering for him and the family. They need palliative care. Ayana, what was your second question?
How we can give palliative care for the family?
You have the more difficult problem now. There is no curative care in this case, Jesse. The traumatic paralysis in this case is forever. No curative care, but certainly medical support also. This pressure sore will have to be treated, infection will have to be treated, any urinary infection will have to be treated, the constipation must be treated, all of them has to be given. Along with that, what else can we actually do? Here is the woman, 65-year-old woman, the only earning member of the family. How are you going to solve the problem? No, let me see. Who would I see in front of me? On the screen, first names that are seen before Asmita, Dixita, Manorama, and Asha. So let me ask all of you, how are you going to solve this financial problem? Will you give him half your salary? You cannot solve all financial problems of all patients from your salary alone. Not possible. What can we do?
Maybe we should find some charity programs or the donation programs where they can help them financially.
Dixita,
Yes, sir.
if he has any power in the hands, can he be taught to do anything?
Yes, maybe we should give him like a physiotherapy or occupational therapy can be included so that he can do his own daily, some minor daily works, which will help his mother to some extent.
Shiva, is Ashla doing a session for them?
No,
This
sir.
batch? Nurse session? No.
No, sir.
No, no. Okay. My executive assistant, her name is Ashla. She is quadriplegic. She had a spine injury at the age of 26 and became paralyzed. She cannot use her fingers. She types with her knuckles like this. And she is working full time. Within their limitations, very often there are things that can be done. We have many patients yearning for themselves. One possibility, it may not be possible. If the fracture is very high up in the neck, he may have no power at all in the hands. He may only be able to speak. I don't know. Maybe no occupation is possible for him. And our social workers will try to see, is he getting disability pension? If the government has a scheme, how will he apply? He cannot even write a letter. His mother may be illiterate. We will have to help them in those kinds of things also. Yes, so that is one thing. Shankar also says we'll connect with them an NGO or some government support if you consider that part of your job, you and I. If we decide that that's also our responsibility, then uh, solutions may emerge. Yes, Diana, maybe if his own religion, according to his own belief, his own religious belief, religious support may help him if that's what he wants. Okay, how about psychological support? You said psychological support. How are you going to give him psychological support? Go and tell him, hey Johnny, cheer up, be happy, think positive. Is that how you will give psychological support? Who wants to talk to me?
Okay. Hello, sir.
Hi, Diana.
I believe the first thing is talking to him and help him ventilate and be non-judgmental.
Diana,
Yes, sir.
you said I will, in answer to my own question, adding on something to what Diana said, I will say, I will sit down beside the man. I will hold his hands, lay a hand on his hands, convey with my eyes and face that I care for you. And I will ask him, tell me, how do you feel? You look sad. What do you look sad? What are the most important things that are bothering you? And if you say I am just a burden to my mother, and what's the point of my being there? I should have been looking after her. Now she has to look after me. What a cursed life this is. And as Diana said, just by allowing to speak like that, speaking it out itself is a form of relief. And rather than saying, oh, will you say, oh, don't talk like that, don't talk like that, be positive. Is that what you will say? Never. We will listen to him completely. And then we will tell him, we see that you are thinking a lot about it. What does your mother say about your illness? And he will say, she keeps saying that I will get better, but I know I will not get better. And we may say, we will not say, don't worry. We will not say, don't think. We will not say, always be positive. Instead, we may say, you think only you have only your mother. We are also going to look after you. We will do our best to work with you. You are important to us. You are important to us. We will try our best to reduce your suffering. That's an assurance that I'll give him. But I'll also ask him, do you feel totally depressed? And if he says, I am very much depressed, I may ask, did you think you want to end your life? I may want to bring out suicidal thoughts in him. And if I think he is in clinical depression, we will treat his depression. So as Diana said, we provide emotional support more by listening than talking, but also by giving him realistic assurance. We will assure him only of things that we can do. Angela, do home visits, do bedsore dressings, spending time with them. Angela, how frequently will you be able to do it?
Maybe every alternative day we can go. Or every alternative day, sir.
Angela, if
And
that's possible, that's very good. If you can go every
the
day,
mother also.
very good. But you cannot do that.
and
That's the
teach the
reality.
mother.
You
Yes,
will
sir.
not be able to do every day. You may not even be able to go on alternate days. So, what's the other way of looking after the dressings, after the precious souls? By teaching the family to care for this, in this case, the
Teaching the
mother.
mother. Yes, sir.
And maybe if you ask around, Ayana said that some of his friends come and help. Maybe if you are able to talk to the friends by phone and discuss it with them, maybe somebody, maybe a neighbor, a friend's wife who is a neighbor, may agree to come and do a daily dressing for her. So we cannot do everything, but we'll try to do our best. Maybe very often we achieve a lot by going and talking to the neighbors and seeing who all want to help and allowing them to help us. And Faustina Safo Chow, you are from which country, Faustina? Not audible to me. No, your voice is dragging, your connectivity is poor. But your name suggests to me that you may be from Ghana. And you say in your chat box, allow him to express his feelings. Faustina, you're not audible. Sorry, it's okay. Connectivity is bad. Your voice is dragging. We cannot hear you. She writes, allow him to express his feelings, worries, and fears. Home visits and to the mother. Listen, we have been talking for 10 minutes about this. We have so far not talked about talking to the mother and listening to the mother. Hey, what's the meaning of the word empathy? Empathy, E-M-P-A-T-H-Y. What is empathy? Empathy is looking at the problem from the other person's point of view, trying to understand that person. Now, if you empathize with the man's mother, what are her problems likely to be? Either speak out if your connectivity is good or write in the chat box. What are the health issues of the mother? Health is physical, social, and mental well being. What are her fears, anxieties, concerns? What could it be? Anybody?
So she must be concerned about the financial
Not audible.
issues.
Louder, please.
She must be concerned about the financial issues, her own health, and also who is there for her in case anything happens to the son.
Who said that? What's the name?
Marine.
Dr. Marine.
Marine.
Sorry?
Marine.
Marine.
Thank you. Thank you. Empathize. When you empathized, you could imagine that the woman's concerns may be many, but she must be wondering, what if I cannot work? What if I fall ill? What if I die? Thank you, Sister Marlene. Sister Dr. Marlene, the psychologist, right?
That's right, sir. That's right.
Yes. Okay. Uh, what will happen to him when I die? Are these the worries? I don't know whether Shiva knows this. Shiva and Diana. Recently, I visited a family in Trivandrum. The patient's father, who is 75 now, was a very senior officer, a scientist in ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, well-known man. He and his wife are living there with his son, who was born with a birth asphyxia, and who is now almost 50 years old. And the scientist and his wife are asking, what if we die? We have often thought about killing your son so that he will not be abandoned. But I can't bring myself to do this. What will happen to him after me? And Shiba and I, you should know this. I have
Yes.
promised him that we will look after him.
Yes, sir. We know that.
I gave him that promise because I know that I can do it. If it was only our usual setup, I cannot do it. But in this case, the man has enough money to employ a paid caregiver, and between him and us, we can look after him. We are looking after several people like that. There is one Anju in Kannur. For him, a sponsor is paying 25,000 a month, so that 15,000 can be paid for a paid caregiver. The rest of the money is for their food and stay. There are good, well-meaning, kind-hearted people if we take the effort to support them. And as Faustina very correctly says, empathy means to understand another person's feelings. I will add, put yourself in the other person's shoes and try to understand that person. Aina, in your about to say your last question, what can be done, right?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
we have discussed.
So we have 2 minutes. Shiva, if anybody has any question, or do you want to say anything?
No, sir, you have covered most of the things. Sir, you have covered most of the things.
And if in case somebody is wondering what is spiritual care, it can be given by a religious head if the person is religious or is willing to become religious. To an agnostic or atheist, going and preaching religion may not work. What can you do? You can convey with your eyes and your visits that you care for him. And the person who initially says there is no God may after 1 month think, I thought there was no God. There must be one. That's why you came as an angel to help me. Spiritual support is giving your love and care to the person. Most importantly, more than anything else. The time is up. Back to you, Arun.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you, sir, for such a wonderful session. And thank you, everyone. And it's a time for feedback. We are sharing the feedback on the chat box. I request everyone to do it now because your feedback is extremely important to us. And we have next sessions on next Monday on pain management. And thank you, everyone. One more time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
And one more request I have. I think some people joined with their device name like iPhone or Samsung Galaxy. Please put your name on our WhatsApp group. That's my request.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. And did you have any extra queries or question? We can you can put on our WhatsApp group, and we will get back to you soon with the answer. Okay, anyway, we are signing out. Thank you.